I've just discovered a new hybrid genre of games that has instantly become my favorite. When it comes to video games, I've always appreciated multiple genres, as I pretty much grew up playing a wide variety. And even now, I still struggle immensely whenever I'm asked what my top 10 favorite games of all time are. And in my adult life, I've gravitated towards games that focus heavily on the gameplay, with either interesting and fun mechanics to interact with, or characters whose movesets are extremely fun and fluid to control. It's why I like puzzle platformers, it's why I like shooters, it's why I like certain roguelikes. As long as there's a fun gameplay loop that challenges either my hands or my brain, I'm having a fun time. Of course, a story will elevate these kinds of games and make them more memorable. I mean, I'm a fan of piecing together lore as much as the next guy, but it's not necessary for me to enjoy a game. Case in point, my love for Foddians. Foddians are the unofficial/official name for what I aptly renamed the rage climbing genre. We call it that because the very first of its kind was a very famous game by the name of Getting Over It by Bennett Foddy. These games are raw gameplay. You start with an awkward control scheme and a mountain to climb, and that's it. The depth of the game is rooted in your adaptation to the foreign movement and your perseverance to climb to the top, despite the plethora of mistakes you're going to make, sending you falling down the mountain. Most players, once they beat it, are understandably filled with relief and move on to never play it again, while others push themselves to try to see how fast they can climb. But that's it. These games are very one-dimensional. It's all gameplay with only one mechanic. Other games like Jump King and Pogostuck have added collectibles, other maps, and even other game modes to further explore how far they can push a singular movement mechanic. But at their core, they're still very simple indie games. However, there's just something about this format that makes so many people want to take on the challenge and then eventually fall in love with these games. And I think that something is the unique control schemes which provide such a fresh and new experience and a sense of improvement. Then when you combine that with the feeling of accomplishment that occurs when a player overcomes the challenge and bursts past what was previously a daunting and seemingly impossible task, it creates an emotionally compelling experience in the practice of perseverance. So what if we took that format, unique controls, strong simple gameplay, and difficult emotional climbs to overcome, and bottled it up, reducing it to one single ingredient ready to be used in a much larger meal? Well, then you'd get the all-new next best genre of games, Foddian hybrids, or rage climbing hybrids, I don't know. Keep watching the video and let me know in the comments below what you think it should be named. So now the question is, what the heck is a Foddian hybrid? Well, let me show you using the game that probably makes the most sense to show you first, titled Jump King Quest. It's made by the exact same developers as Jump King, so naturally, it's an easy first example to describe what this genre is. So we've got Jump King, right? A game that controls with the arrow keys and spacebar, where your only goal is to jump left, right, or straight upwards to reach the top of the map, with the skill coming from your judgment of how long you need to hold down the jump button to build power. Hold spacebar for too long and you go sailing too far, and hold it for too short and you smack your face on the ledge and go falling down. Simple, singular mechanic, a classic rage climbing game. Now let's take that experience and combine it with Dark Souls. Yeah. Nexile took their Foddian experience and added combat, enemies, RPG elements, weapon choices, armor choices, and boss battles, all twisted together into a world that weaves a loose narrative centered roughly around the original game's universe. Now, I already made a video covering this game that you can check out right now, but as you can imagine, this game is f***ing hard. You've got this awkward slow movement, and now you're thrown into a completely unique combat system on top of that. Sounds miserable, right? Well, maybe for some people, but for me, this is one of the best games I've ever played. Some of these boss battles push me to my limits, requiring so much focus and making me feel stress and relief unlike any other game. Well, except maybe Dark Souls. It's the same exact feeling I felt when playing the original Dark Souls on the Xbox 360 for the first time. You feel helpless and scared at what's to come, until you find your footing and take out some bosses, only to run into a completely unique boss who destroys you, sending your confidence back to zero. And now, you have to learn and overcome this new roadblock boss to defeat it and feel powerful again. It's exhilarating. Some of these bosses took multiple hours to beat, and by the end of the individual fights, I felt like I was in the boss's head, able to telegraph and predict their next animation and capitalize with the correct punishes and dodges. Oh my god, I love this game. And it's the most clear-cut example of this new Foddian hybrid genre, literally fusing Jump King with a beloved series like Dark Souls. But Jump King Quest is the obvious standout here. What other games fall under the Foddian hybrid genre? Quite possibly the most stressful game I've ever played has to be White Knuckle. It ticks all the boxes: climbing, unique controls, and an immense feeling of relief and accomplishment when you beat it for the first time. And what does this game add to make it hybrid? SCP-style monsters that chase after you on your climb, trying to kill you. But not only that, it's also a roguelike with perk upgrades and item management to make you climb faster or reach farther, with a hard reset back to the beginning if you die. Meaning it's a Foddian/horror game/roguelike. Now, horror games are one of those genres I never really understood. As I've said, I'm more of a gameplay person, so games centered around story are secondary to me. The one mechanic I do love from horror games is how they put the player in a state of duress and force them to use gameplay in order to escape. It can be a puzzle, it can be pathfinding, it can be item management, whatever. That mechanic has always been cool to me. But in horror games, I've always found it sort of trivial, because death in these games holds no consequences. You get a cheap jump scare with a scream, and then you're respawned with full knowledge of what to do now in order to escape. There's no stakes. However, there are some games that do make dying consequential. Until Dawn is one of those games, in which you're in a third-person perspective controlling a bunch of characters across a larger story. Your choices and execution of QuickTime events can sometimes mean life or death for the characters in the story. So unless you save scum, once they're dead, that's it, and the story moves on. White Knuckle as a horror game is quite possibly the most effective at giving death real consequence. Dying in this game means heading back to level 1, where you lose all your perks and items. It's a clean reset. So it enhances the panic when being chased, because the current run you're on will be wiped out forever if you fail to escape. But not only that, to counteract the player's memorization of the game, the areas are broken up into segments, where each room can be swapped in and out with different unfamiliar rooms. It's not totally random, as the configurations of each room will be the same every time you see them, but the order and selection of the rooms that they appear in come in many different combinations that are randomized, meaning no two runs will look exactly the same. This only adds to the horror aspect, because you can never really get comfortable with a section of the playthrough, so you'll always be using your brain to choose the best path. Getting into the actual gameplay, you basically have two visible hands on your screen. By using left click, you grab with your left hand, and by using right click, you grab with your right hand. Grabbing onto holds and ledges while moving, sprinting, and jumping to maneuver makes for a very unique control scheme. Your crosshair needs to be accurate in order to grab onto things, adding to the difficulty and precision of the movement. Then, on top of this, there's all sorts of useful items you can mess with in your inventory and an encumberment system that will slow you down if you're too heavy. Also, if you want to use your inventory while climbing, you need to actively be holding left or right click, while managing your items with the other hand, all while your grabbing hand turns red, getting tired from holding the wall. This is the indicator for the stamina management mechanic that is exclusively visual and very cleverly done. Moving upwards through the levels eventually will become extremely fluid and fun, especially after you get some perk upgrades to help you speed up. It definitely takes some time to master this movement, but learning the fluidity feels amazing, just like any other Foddian. But all movement skill goes out the window when you enter an unknown area and a monster starts chasing you, sending you into a panic where you might accidentally miss a hold or mismanage your items, which ends up causing you to die purely from panic, sending you back to square one, resetting you to a new run. I'll definitely be going into full depth about this game in a future video, but for now, I'll just leave you with this. It's another one of the best games I've ever played, and it's another one that fits seamlessly into the Foddian hybrid genre. Now, the previous two Foddian hybrids are extremely challenging, stress-inducing experiences, but this new genre doesn't always have to be so stressful. Let's change pace a bit and take a look at Bennett Foddy's brand new game, Baby Steps. Made by the man who started it all, Baby Steps is a very odd experience, in a good way. It's a highly story-focused game, centered around Nathan, our main character, who is essentially a deadbeat living in his parents' basement. Suddenly, he's teleported off his couch and into a cave, where he is understandably confused as you begin your journey. Immediately, you run into Jim, who tries to strike up a friendly conversation.
Are you with Jim?
I'm Jim.
No, I'm Jim.
Yeah, no, you're Jim.
Just relax. Nothing to be ashamed of. Everybody falls. Let's get you on your feet.
I'm good.
To which
I'm good.
Nate, in the most awkward exchange, tries to brush him off and move on. But since he has zero self-confidence and Jim keeps confidently pushing him, it creates this super uncomfortable conversation.
Oh, no. It's just a cave. But it's mysterious. Of course you're full of questions.
I got it.
But before we get to that, there's just a few things I've got to explain.
That's okay. Can I go?
And this will be the norm for most of the cutscenes in the game. But this first one in particular perfectly sets up what kind of person our main character is. Gameplay-wise, you essentially have three controls: lift left foot, lift right foot, and lean with the analog stick, creating a control scheme where your man-child character is stomping through the land like an infant. You exit the cave at the bottom of a mountain, with a huge climb ahead of you, ripe with extra collectibles, extra side quests, and extra little cutscenes that introduce more and more characters into this nonsensical dream world that interact with our awkward man-baby. It's all extremely goofy and hilarious, especially once you meet these well-endowed donkeys. The journey at its core is a Foddian, where it's up to your movement and skill to ascend to the top, and it's your own failures to deal with obstacles that will end up sending you falling down the mountain. But overall, it's much deeper than that. Underneath the surface, it's a character study narrative, diving into the psychology of Nathan, and this journey is helping him grow and become a more confident man. Nathan encounters all kinds of confident personalities who all challenge him and poke and prod at him, with real-life social scenarios where he can't escape from their persistence, so he's forced to talk and interact to get himself through the conversations. But Luckily, these characters don't cast too strong a judgment on Nathan, and allow him to be himself and make his own mistakes and choices. They don't antagonize him if he's rude or doesn't do what they want. They just accept him for who he is, which allows him to grow. And it all gets a little more real when Nate makes friends with Moose, who happens to share similar experiences and woes as Nathan, and their friendship is able to help each other blossom. So while on the surface, all you're doing is walking, falling, and stumbling your way up the mountain, deep down, this game has an extreme amount of depth and layers in its goofy and unorthodox character writing and narrative, which, in my head, makes it more than just a simple Foddian. It shows a clear sign of the true evolution of the genre from the man who created the genre itself. And personally, I would like to see many more Foddian hybrid games come to life because they truly are some of the best gaming experiences I've ever had. Thanks for watching.